The Spirit's Book, containing the principles of the Spiritist doctrine concerning the immortality of the soul, the nature of spirits and their relationships with humankind, moral laws, the present life, the future life, and the destiny of humanity, according to the teachings given by highly evolved spirits through several mediums, received and coordinated. By Allan Kardec. Part 1. First Causes. Chapter 1. God. God and the Infinite.
What is God?
God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things.
What is meant by the infinite?
That which has neither beginning nor end. The unknown. All which is unknown is infinite.
Could we say that God is the infinite?
That would be an incomplete definition. Human speech is too impoverished and deficient to define that which transcends human intelligence.
Proofs of the existence of God.
Where may we find proof for the existence of God?
In an axiom you apply to all your sciences. There is no effect without a cause. If you would search for the cause of whatever is not the work of human beings, then reason will answer your question.
All human beings have within them the intuitive sentiment of God's existence. What can we conclude from this?
That God exists. Otherwise, where would such a sentiment come from if it were not based on something real? This is an application of the principle that there is no effect without a cause.
Might in our inner sentiment about the existence of God be the result of education and the product of acquired ideas?
If that were the case, why would members of your primitive cultures have this intuition?
Could we find the first cause of the formation of things in the innermost properties of matter?
Even if you could, what in turn would be the cause of those properties? There must always be a first cause.
What about the idea that attributes the first formation of all things to an accidental combination of matter, i.e. to chance?
Another absurdity. How could anyone with any common sense believe that chance is an intelligent agent? Moreover, what is chance? Nothing.
Where may we see in the first cause a supreme intelligence, superior to all other intelligences?
You have a proverb that says, "The workman is known by his work." So look at the work and you will find the workman. Pride is what creates disbelief. Human pride believes in nothing above itself, and that is why people think they are so powerful. Poor beings. A mere breath from God could blow them over.
The attributes of the divinity.
Can human beings fathom God's innermost nature?
No, they lack the aptitude to comprehend it.
Will they ever be able to fathom the mystery of the divinity?
When their spirits are no longer eclipsed by matter, and when they have finally purified themselves enough to be able to approach God, then they will see and comprehend God.
Even though we cannot fathom God's innermost nature, can we get an idea of some of the divine perfections?
Yes, some of them. Human beings comprehend them better. As they progressively overcome matter, they can get glimpses of them through thought.
When we state that God is eternal, infinite, immutable, immaterial, one, all-powerful, and supremely just and good, don't we have a complete idea of God's attributes?
From your own point of view, yes, because you believe that in so stating them, you, therefore, have named all of them. Nevertheless, you should understand that there are things that transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent person, things your language cannot define because language is limited to your ideas and sensations. Your reason tells you that God must be perfect in those attributes to the nth degree, for if God lacked any of them or was not perfect in them to the nth degree, God would not be superior to everything else and thus would not be God. In order to be superior to everything else, God must not be subject to any change and must not be imperfect in any way imaginable.
Pantheism.
Is God a distinct being, or as some believe, the result of all the combined forces and intelligences of the universe?
If the latter were the case, God per se would not exist because God would be an effect and not a cause. God cannot be both cause and effect at the same time. You cannot doubt that God exists, and that is the point that matters. Believe me, and do not try to go any further. Do not try to go any further. Do not get lost in a maze from which you will not be able to exit. Trying to go further will not make you any better. Instead, it will probably just add to your pride by leading you to imagine that you understand something when you actually understand nothing at all. Therefore, put all theories aside regarding the matter. You have much more important things to be concerned about, beginning with yourselves. Study your own imperfections in order to get rid of them. That will be far more useful to you than trying to penetrate the impenetrable.
What should we think of the opinion holding that all the bodies in nature, all the beings and globes in the universe are components of the divinity, and taken all together comprise the divinity itself, i.e. the pantheistic doctrine?
Since humans are unable to make themselves God, they would like to at least be a part of God.
Adherents of this theory claim that it demonstrates some of God's attributes. Since there are an infinite number of worlds, then God is infinite. Since a void or absolute nothingness is nowhere, then God is everywhere. God being everywhere because everything is an integral component of God. God infuses all the phenomena of nature with God's intelligence. What can refute this viewpoint?
Reason, reflect on it carefully, and you will have no difficulty in seeing how absurd it is.
Chapter 2. The general elements of the universe. Knowledge of the origin of things.
Can humans know the origin of things?
No, on earth. God does not allow everything to be revealed to them.
Will they ever be able to grasp the mystery of things now hidden from them?
The veil is lifted as they become more and more purified, but in order to understand certain things, they need faculties they do not yet have.
Can't humans grasp some of nature's secrets through scientific investigation?
Science has been given to them for their advancement in all matters, but they cannot go beyond the limits set by God.
Outside the realm of scientific investigation, can humans receive communications of a higher order regarding matters that go beyond the scope of their senses?
Yes, if God deems it useful, God will reveal what science cannot detect.
Spirit and matter.
Is matter eternal like God, or was it created at some specific time in the past?
Only God knows. Nevertheless, there is something you should realize by using your reason. God, the very personification of love and charity, has never been inactive. No matter how long ago you might imagine the onset of the divine action to have been, could you possibly conceive of God as ever having been idle for even 1 second?
Matter is generally defined as that which has extension, that which can impress our senses, that which is impenetrable. Are these definitions correct?
From your own point of view, they are correct because you can only talk about matters that are familiar to you. Matter, however, also exists in states that are unfamiliar. For example, it may be so ethereal and subtle that your senses cannot detect it. It is matter nonetheless, even though you do not perceive it as such.
What is spirit?
The intelligent principle of the universe.
Is spirit synonymous with intelligence?
Intelligence is one of the essential attributes of spirit, but both merge into a common principle. Thus, for you, they are one and the same thing.
Is spirit independent of matter, or is it only a property of matter, as colors are properties of light and as sound is a property of air?
They are distinct from each other, but the union of spirit and matter is necessary to enable matter to act intelligently.
Is this union equally necessary for the manifestation of spirit?
For you, it is necessary because you are not built to perceive spirit apart from matter. Your senses are not formed to do so.
Can we conceive of spirit apart from matter and matter apart from spirit?
Absolutely, through thought.
So are there two general elements in the universe, matter and spirit?
Yes, and over everything is God, the creator and author of all. These three elements comprise the principle of all that exists. They are the universal trinity. However, to the element of matter must be added the universal fluid, which plays an intermediary role between spirit and matter per se, since matter is too dense for spirit to act upon it directly, although from a certain point of view, this fluid may be regarded as part of the material element. It differs from it due to special properties. If it were simply matter, there would be no reason for spirit not to be matter too. It is placed between spirit and matter. It is a fluid, just as matter is matter, in its countless combinations with matter, and under the direction of spirit it is capable of producing an infinite variety of things about which you still know very, very little. By being the agent upon which spirit acts, this universal primitive or elementary fluid is the principle without which matter would forever remain in a state of dispersion. It would never acquire the properties given to it by gravitation.
Might this fluid be what we call electricity?
We have stated that it is capable of countless combinations. What you call the electric and magnetic fluids are both modifications of the one universal fluid. Properly speaking, this fluid is a more perfect and subtler matter that may be considered as independent.
Since spirit is something in and of itself, wouldn't it be clearer and less subject to confusion to label these two general elements as inert matter and intelligent matter?
Words do not matter much to us. It is up to you to formulate your language in a way that you can understand one another. The disputes among you almost always arise because you cannot agree on the meanings of the words you use. Your language is incomplete regarding things that do not touch your senses.
The properties of matter.
Is ponderability an essential attribute of matter?
Of matter, as you understand it, yes, but not of matter considered as the universal fluid. The ethereal and subtle matter that forms this fluid is imponderable to you, and yet it is the very principle of your ponderable. 19. Matter.
Does matter consist of one or many elements?
One single primitive element. The bodies you regard as simple are not true elements, but rather transformations of the one primitive matter.
Where do the different properties of matter come from?
From the modifications that the elementary molecules undergo as a result of their combining under certain conditions.
Then wouldn't flavors, odors, colors, sounds, even the poisonous or healing qualities of certain bodies be no more than modifications of the one and the same primitive substance?
Yes, of course, and they only exist due to the disposition of the organs that are meant to perceive them.
Is the same elementary matter capable of undergoing all possible modifications and acquiring all possible properties?
Yes, and this is what you should understand when we say that everything is in everything.
Doesn't this theory affirm the opinion of those who do not believe in more than only two essential properties for matter, force and movement, and who believe that all the other properties are only secondary effects that vary according to the intensity of the force and direction of the movement?
This opinion is correct, but it should also add, according to the arrangement of the molecules. This may be seen, for example, in an opaque body that can become transparent and vice versa.
Do molecules have a defined form?
Certainly molecules have a form, but you are incapable of discerning it.
Is this form constant or variable?
Constant for the primitive elementary molecules, but variable for the secondary ones, which are only aggregations of the former. However, what you term a molecule is still very far from being the elementary molecule.
Universal space.
Is universal space infinite or limited?
Infinite. If it had limits, what would be beyond them? I know this baffles your reason, yet reason itself tells you that it can be no other way. The same is true of the idea of the infinite. In all things, it is not something you can comprehend on your restricted world.
Is there an absolute void in any part of universal space?
No, there is no void. What appears to you to be a void is actually occupied by matter that cannot be detected by your senses or instruments.
Chapter 3. Creation. The formation of worlds.
Was the universe created, or has it existed from all eternity like God?
Obviously, the universe did not create itself, and if it has existed from all eternity like God, then it could not be God's work.
How did God create the universe?
To borrow a well-known expression, by the divine will, nothing can better portray that all-powerful will than those grand words from Genesis. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
Can we know about the way in which worlds are formed?
All that we can say, and the only thing you can comprehend, is that worlds are formed by the condensation of the matter scattered throughout space.
In accordance with current beliefs, are comets a commencement of the condensation of matter and worlds in course of formation?
That is correct, but it is absurd to believe in their influence. I mean, the influence commonly attributed to them, for all the celestial bodies play their part in influencing certain physical phenomena.
Could a completely formed world disappear and its compositional matter be once again scattered in space?
Yes, God renews worlds just as God renews living beings.
Can we know how long it has taken for worlds to form the Earth, for instance?
I cannot tell you anything about that, for only the Creator knows. Anyone who claimed to have such knowledge or to know the number of centuries it took for its formation would be very foolish indeed.
The formation of living beings.
When did living beings first appear on the Earth?
In the beginning, all was chaos. The elements were all jumbled together. Little by little, each thing settled into its proper place. Then living beings appropriate for that state of the globe appeared.
Where did these living beings come from in order to appear on the Earth?
The Earth already contained their prototypes, which had been waiting for the favorable moment in order to develop. The organic elements began to combine the moment the force that had kept them apart ceased, thereby forming the prototypes of all living beings. These prototypes then remained latent and inert like a chrysalis or a seed until the proper time for each species to appear. Then the beings of each species came together and reproduced.
Where were these organic elements before Earth's formation?
They were in a fluidic state, so to speak, in space amongst the spirits or on other planets, waiting for the creation of the Earth in order to commence a new existence on a new globe.
Are there still creatures that come into being spontaneously?
Yes, but their primitive prototype has always existed in the latent state. You witness this phenomenon all the time. Don't human and animal tissues contain a multitude of larval prototypes waiting to emerge as soon as the decay needed for their existence begins? It is a microscopic world that slumbers and then awakens.
Was the human species among the organic elements on the terrestrial globe?
Yes, and it came forth at just the right time. This is the basis for the statement that humans were formed from the dust of the earth.
Can we know the ages in which humans and other life forms first appeared on the Earth?
No, all of your calculations are purely speculative.
If the prototype of the human species was among the globe's organic elements, why don't human beings continue to appear spontaneously as they did when they first came into being?
The beginning of things remains one of God's secrets. Nevertheless, we can say that once early humans began to spread out over the earth, They absorbed into themselves the elements needed for their formation in order to pass on these elements according to the laws of reproduction. The same happened with all the other species of living beings.
The peopling of the earth. Adam.
Did the human species begin with one single man?
No, the man known as Adam was neither the first nor the only one to populate the earth.
Can we know when Adam lived?
More or less at the time assigned to him, about 4,000 years BC.
The diversity of human races.
Where did the physical and moral differences that distinguish the Earth's various races come from?
From climate, lifestyle, and custom. The same would happen if two siblings from the same mother were each raised differently and far apart. They would show no moral resemblance to each other.
Did humankind first appear at various points on the globe?
Yes, but at different periods, which is another cause of human race diversity. Later, humankind spread throughout the different climatic zones, and new types arose in the course of interbreeding between different races.
Do these different races imply distinct species?
Certainly not. All are of the same family. Do the different varieties of the same fruit mean that they do not all belong to the same species?
Since the various human types have not all come from the same ancestor, mightn't they cease to regard one another as brothers and sisters?
All are brothers and sisters in God because they are animated by the same spirit and strive towards the same goal. You always want to take words literally.
The plurality of worlds.
Are all the globes spinning through space inhabited?
Yes, and contrary to what Earth dwellers believe, they themselves are far from being first in intelligence, goodness, and perfection. Nevertheless, there are individuals who think they know the whole truth of the matter and imagine that this little planet is the only one privileged enough to be inhabited by reasoning beings. Pride and vanity. They fancy that God has created the universe only for Earth dwellers.
Is the physical composition of all the different globes the same?
No, they do not resemble one another at all.
Since the physical composition of all the various worlds is not the same, do the beings inhabiting them have a different physical organization?
Of course, just as on yours fish are made for living in the water and birds for living in the air.
Do the worlds farthest from the sun lack light and heat, since the sun would appear only as a distant star to them?
Do you believe that the sun is the only source of light and heat? What about electricity? On some worlds, electricity plays a role unknown to you, which is much more important than the role it plays on Earth. Besides, we have never said that all beings are made of the same matter as you, with organs similar to yours.
Chapter 4. The Vital Principle. Organic and inorganic beings.
Does one and the same force unite the material elements in both organic and inorganic bodies?
Yes, the law of attraction, which is the same for all.
Is there any difference between the matter of organic and inorganic bodies?
The matter is always the same, but in organic bodies it is animalized.
What is the cause of the animalization of matter?
Its union with the vital principle?
Does this vital principle reside within some particular agent, or is it merely a property of organized matter? In other words, is it a cause or an effect?
It is both. Life is an effect produced by the action of this agent upon matter. However, without matter, the agent is not life, just as matter cannot be alive without the agent. It gives life to all beings that absorb and assimilate it.
We have seen that spirit and matter are two elements comprising the universe. Does the vital principle form a third?
It is certainly one of the elements required in the composition of the universe, but it has its origin in the modifications of the one universal matter. You may regard it as an element like oxygen or hydrogen, but even these are not truly primitive elements because they both derive from one and the same principle.
Does the vital principle reside in any one of the bodies known to us?
Its source is in the universal fluid. It is what you call the magnetic fluid or the animalized electric fluid, an intermediary, the link between spirit and matter.
Is the vital principle the same for all organic beings?
Yes, but it is modified according to each species. It is this principle that enables all species to move and act. It also distinguishes them from inert matter because the movement of matter per se is not life. Matter is moved. It does not produce movement by itself.
Is vitality a permanent attribute of the vital agent, or does it only develop through the functioning of the organs?
It develops only as the body develops. Haven't we already stated that without matter, this agent is not life per se? The union of the two is necessary to produce life.
Life and death.
What causes the death of organic beings?
Their organs wear out.
Why does an injury to the heart seem to cause death more often than one to any other organ?
The heart is a life-producing machine. Nevertheless, it is not the only organ to which an injury causes death. It is only one of the body's essential parts.
What happens to the matter and the vital principle of organic beings after death?
The inert matter decomposes and is used to form other beings. The vital principle returns to the vital mass.
Intelligence and instinct.
Is intelligence an attribute of the vital principle?
No plants are alive, but they do not think. They only have organic life. Intelligence and matter are independent of each other. A body may be alive yet lack intelligence, but intelligence can only be expressed through material organs. Only the union with spirit endows animalized matter with intelligence.
What is the source of intelligence?
We have already said the universal intelligence.
Is instinct something other than intelligence?
Not exactly. It is a type of intelligence. Instinct is non-reasoning intelligence through which all beings provide for their own needs.
Can we draw a line between instinct and intelligence? i.e., can we determine when one ends and the other begins?
No, for they frequently commingle. However, we can very well distinguish the actions belonging to instinct from those belonging to intelligence.
Is it correct to say that the instinctive faculties decrease as the intellectual faculties increase?
No, instinct is always present, but humans neglect it. Instinct can also lead us to the good. It almost always guides us, sometimes more surely than our reason. It never errs.